Good morning, monsters, and welcome to today's episode of Monsters on the Edge. I am your host, Barnaby, and we are celebrating a great day today. It is Indigenous People Day, and we have a great guest here who has brought a guest on today's show. So it's going to be an exciting show, and we want to get right into that. So before we do, guys, if you have not checked out what my team does, Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society, check this out. Are you interested in the paranormal, ghosts, spirits, and the metaphysical? How about Mothman, Bigfoot, and other cryptids? What about UFOs, UAPs, and other anomalous phenomenon? Then you need to check out Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society. We have all that and more. Watch our series, Caps Road Trip, where we travel across the U.S. in search of these phenomena and bring you not only the history of these locations, events, and encounters, but evidence that we capture along the way. Alongside our team of researchers and investigators, you never know who will be joining in on the investigations. Are you interested in Bigfoot in Upper Michigan? Check out Finding Huyton, a series documenting the Sasquatch activity on a very special 80-acre property just outside of Menominee that has been a hotspot since 2012. Want even more? Check out our podcasts. Whispers from the Dark is the official podcast of Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society and brings you interviews with the top names in the field of paranormal to cryptids and more. Hear witnesses' accounts and go in-depth with the CAPS team to hear more about our ongoing research. Are you more into cryptids? Find links to our all-cryptid show, Monsters on the Edge, on the Untold Radio Network. If you're into spooky, subscribe now and you won't miss a minute of our brand new series coming soon, Spirits of Macville. Follow along as we uncover the haunted history dating back to 1877 of a very well-known location you may have never guessed would be haunted. Head on over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button and you won't miss a minute. Awesome, guys. And if you guys also want to check out our series on Paraflix, we are on the Trail of Undiscovered Beasts. This first season is out now, and it's all about Bigfoot in Wisconsin. Season 2 is going to be coming up sometime soon, maybe, I hope. And that'll be exclusively on Paraflix. If you want to show your support for everything we do at Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society, head on over to wisconsincaps.com and click on Shop Our Store. There you can find all kinds of merchandise with our logo on it. You can wear it and show your support. While you're online, head on over to all of our social media platforms. You can find us at Wisconsin Caps at Patreon, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, and WI Caps on Instagram. Coming up this weekend, Saturday, October 14th, if you're anywhere in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, or anywhere near it, come on down to the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference. It is at the Irish Cultural and Heritage Center, and it is a free event. You just got to go to MilwaukeeParacon.com to get your free tickets and register there. And Sunday, there's all kinds of events that are sponsored by this. You can go there and see all of that as well. I myself will be leading a Bigfoot hike that Sunday afternoon, so you can head on over and get tickets for that and come out and check it out. And then, guys, our last event of the year, we are going to be down in Lexington, Kentucky for CryptidCon, November 18th and 19th. So it's been a very busy year for us here at CAPS, and that's what we got. And one last quick thing here. If you want to show your support for everything here on the Untold Radio Network, here's how.
Hey, Untold Radio Network fans. Want exclusive perks and to support our channel? Introducing our YouTube membership program with 3 amazing levels. Get loyalty badges that level up to different cryptids the longer you're a supporter. How cool is that? You'll also get access to custom Bigfoot emojis and priority in chat. Upgrade to Backstage Pass for exclusive wallpapers, photos, status updates, discounted books, and merchandise. Go all in with the producer level for everything mentioned plus member shoutouts. Ready for an enhanced experience? Join now, pick your membership level, and let's make this journey even more exciting together.
All right, guys. It is time for our guest today. Our guest is a fabulous speaker and researcher, and I can't say enough good things about Allison Jornlin. Allison, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much, Barnaby. I'm really happy about your continued interest, and I'm just thrilled that it's the second year that you've come to me to talk about Indigenous Peoples Day. Oh, and that's today, the second Monday in October, and it's a great opportunity for us to, if we're not doing it already, to reach out to the Native communities in Wisconsin or wherever you hail from, uh, and get their unique perspectives on the paranormal.
Definitely. Absolutely. And we are going to talk all about that. I want to talk to you just to get some information out here. We are both going to be in Milwaukee this weekend. I know you have a part in helping put this on every year as well. What else?
I do.
What else is going on? I know there's so much going on this weekend, and I know I missed a lot. Can you tell us a little bit more about what's going on in Milwaukee?
Yeah, well, we have a lot of speakers on Saturday, and I'll be one of the speakers. And I've been focusing on my talk, of course, which is going to be a live podcast recording about some of the exorcisms and devilish encounters that have occurred in Milwaukee. And these are stories that you haven't heard before, but you will know one of these stories, maybe. There's an exorcism called the Earling exorcism, which took place in Iowa, but it was an exorcism of a person who had ties to Milwaukee and was actually exercised in Milwaukee 2 years prior in 1926. So I'll be talking about that as well as earlier manifestations of evil in Milwaukee that frightened a lot of people at the time, going back to the 1800s. So yeah, if you're out there today, you probably are interested in horror, and it probably hasn't missed. You probably haven't missed that The Exorcist Believer is out in theaters, and William Peter Blatty, the author who wrote the novel The Exorcist, upon which all these film works are based on, was inspired by a couple of different exorcisms. And one of them you probably have heard a lot about, but the other one, which has ties to Milwaukee, you haven't heard much about. But that's where we get a pea soup vomit, for instance, or that strange kind of crab crawling or climbing up the walls. That's where all those tropes come from. Oh, also um, something crawling underneath the skin. That comes from this case, which, as I said, had ties to Milwaukee, which you'll learn all about when you come to the conference.
Very cool. Awesome. So I know myself, Shitan Noir, and Terry Cullen are going to be doing a panel discussion on lake monsters and sea creatures and stuff, and other water cryptids from Wisconsin and across the world, pretty much. So it'll be very audience interactive, kind of Q&A, and a lot of fun. What else is going on? What other speakers are going to be there, Allison?
Well, could you talk a little bit more about Terry Cullen?
Well, Terry Cullen is an amazing man. I had him on the show, I think 2 weeks ago now. If anybody wants to go back and rewatch that, and if you go to our website, you can go back and find the first interview I did with Terry as well, about the Minnesota Iceman. And he was the person who actually did not discover it, but he went to the fair and saw it on display and worked very hard to bring it to the attention of the scientific community that just did not want to hear about it. And he basically is the one that put the Minnesota Iceman on the map. And Shitan Noir is an amazing researcher. She does Sasquatch GQ magazine. She was on my premiere show of Monsters on the Edge here. If you want to go back and hear her talk. No, actually, I think she was on the second one. I'm sorry. But she was on one of the first episodes over here. And she does all kinds of stuff with Bigfoot. And she wrote an entire book on sea monsters and lake monsters of Lake Michigan. So.
Yeah, I know that we have a day of programming. I know that organizer T. Krulos is going to be talking somewhat about his work on a film about horror hosts. And I saw a post by him just the other day, which talked about a little bit about August Derleth, who you may not know the name, but because of our August Derleth, you know about the writings of H.P. Lovecraft, but you might not know about that August Derleth was also interested in studying the paranormal. So I know that he's probably going to talk a little bit about August Derleth because he posted a photo of him in a vampire costume the other day. So I'm excited to see what he has to talk about. But we have a day's worth of activity, and it's also an opportunity to visit the Irish Cultural and Heritage Center, which is near 22nd in Wisconsin. And that's a great haunted place in the city, which Wisconsin Avenue, I call Milwaukee's haunted Main Street because there's so many haunted places along that historic street. And one of the haunted places is the Irish Cultural and Heritage Center, which is an old church, which during its time as a church, Martin Luther King Jr. spoke there, and also Helen Keller. And as I found out just this year, and I did an article about the volunteers who take care of the building have had a lot of ghost experiences there. So we'll have to touch on that too. It's an opportunity to visit this historic haunt.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. So guys, that is this Saturday in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It is Saturday, October 14th. And it is a free event. Go to Milwaukee Paracon, as you see there, if you're watching this on video. Otherwise, Milwaukee, PARACON.com. And you can register for free tickets. Allison, can they get tickets at the door as well?
Ooh, that's a good question. Don't quote me on it. I believe you can, but it's best to register ahead, just so we know how many people we have to accommodate. So that's why we're saying, I don't want to turn people away, but please do register ahead of time because it is free and it helps us keep track of our numbers. That's the reason that we're doing it, to make sure we have enough of everything to accommodate you. So if you could register ahead of time, that would really help us. But again, it is free. We just want to know who's all coming.
Absolutely. And the reason why it is free is it is sponsored by American Ghost Walk Tours. And
that's right. That's American Ghost Walks. You can find more information about American Ghost Walks at americanghostwalks.com. That's a family business that I have with my brother, and we have tours in 7 states and Puerto Rico. So there's a lot of tours that we have going on this season all over the country. So do check it out at americanghostwalks.com. And yes, the Milwaukee Paracon is a great thing for us to have every year. And so that's why we sponsor it every year. And we encourage people to come, and we encourage you to, again, register ahead at milwaukeeparacon.com, because in the past we've had, about 1,000 people or more. So we just want to make sure we can accommodate everyone. So do register ahead.
Absolutely. And I do believe that the links to Milwaukee Paracon as well as American Ghost Walk Tours are in the show notes for you. So if you guys can click in there, you can find them and everything there. Awesome. So, Allison, we are here celebrating today. And I want you to talk a little bit about that. And you have brought your own guest on today's show. So, tell us about what today means to you and how it got started. And feel free to introduce your guest.
Yeah, so I worked for 13 years as a fourth grade teacher at Indian Community School in Milwaukee. And this is a great school that serves Indigenous children all over the city. And, some come to go to school there from all over the state. And it's a wonderful place that teaches them about their heritage. And my fourth grade class in 2016 decided that they wanted Milwaukee to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day, as many communities across the Midwest and other parts of the United States had begun doing. And I proposed to them, well, why not us? And they said, you're right, why not us? And they were the ones that really were so enthusiastic about it that, resolutions are very dry. There's a lot of whereas clauses, but they were so motivated to write that resolution together as a class that they did so. But not only was there writing involved, there's also public speaking in front of our county representatives in Milwaukee. So on many occasions, they had to speak in front of committees and then in front of the whole assembly about why Indigenous Peoples Day is important. But our representatives were so impressed that we were able to pass Indigenous Peoples Day. We only had one detractor. Everyone else supported us, and we were able to get it recognized for the first time in Milwaukee County. And then about 4 years later, subsequent to that, let's say, we as a school went out to the Capitol in Madison, and we're supporting a bill that would get Indigenous Peoples Day passed throughout the state. And that was in the next year, the 2017 to 2018 school year. But after that, we weren't able to pass that bill. But when Tony Evers came into office, this was about 4 years later, when my fourth grade class was now eighth graders. Tony Evers actually came to the school, and in the drum, which is our ceremony and event area, he came and sat down with all these eighth graders now around him and signed an Indigenous Peoples Day proclamation statewide beside them. And because he recognized all the effort that they had put in, again, in terms of writing, in terms of speaking, in terms of art, making signs. There's a lot of skills that students have that can be very persuasive, and they don't need to wait until they're adults to get involved in a local government. And I have one student who I think one day will be president. at least it in fourth grade. She was already working towards that. So that's why we have Indigenous Peoples Day in Milwaukee, and it's being celebrated all over, including an event at the Milwaukee Public Museum today, which is going on right now until like 3 p.m., I believe. But check out the Milwaukee Public Museum's website. That's another great haunt in Wisconsin. So you could experience some Indigenous Peoples Day events today, and also maybe get haunted if you go to MPM. But yeah, that's the history of it. And regarding Native people and the paranormal, I've seen some problematic things come forward where it seems that a lot of paranormal investigators talk about Native peoples instead of talking to Native peoples. And I think it can be challenging. I know it can, to reach out to tribal communities, but we should definitely do that. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of tropes that are really lazy, where we say, well, this place was haunted because it's on an Indian burial ground, or like you showed in your intro, the Piasaw bird from Alton, Illinois. Well, it's not a bird. It is a strange cryptid, but I've written a lot about this. It's more likely what we would call in this area Mishapiju, which is a water creature that drowns people, not something that comes out of the sky. At least in this area and throughout the Midwest, the thunderbird is thought of as the ancestral protector who will defend you against that creature, Mississippi, which might try to drown you if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. So that's what that creature is. But you wouldn't know that if you didn't look into anthropology and archaeology, or reach out to tribal people. And I just think as we grow as a paranormal community, that's a natural step. So what we're doing today, and hopefully we can do a lot more, not just on Indigenous Peoples Day, is welcome people who are interested in the paranormal and happen to be Native on shows like these to get their perspective. And today, from the Ho-Chunk Nation, we have Kimberly Lonetree.
Welcome to the show, Kimberly.
Hi, everyone. Hi, how are you?
Hello.
I'm sorry if you hear some squeaking.
And the little puppy guest in the background.
Yes,
that's right. We love
my
dogs.
healer. Come here, son. Come here. I know. So yeah, hey, I know Allison, fairly well, I would have to say. She's gotten some really good stories out of me, and vice versa. I really liked everything that you had to say, Allison. Just very eloquent. I really appreciated everything that you had to say about, involving Indigenous peoples, and kind of hearing from us about, our own paranormal experiences too. Today is a very special day. So thank you, Pinagigi, for everything that you have done for Indigenous peoples in Wisconsin, especially. And I can't, thank you enough for just caring, and thank you for bringing me on. So
I was just the facilitator for Indigenous Peoples Day. The kids did the work, so we should thank them, and always remember that when they were, not even 10 years old, they were making a difference in local politics. And as they grow, they can do more and more. So they should always remember their contribution. Yes. But I would love, Kim, if you have some stories that you feel okay to share, or, like I just shared, if you have things that are kind of like pet peeves of yours, like the whole Indian burial ground, or, have you seen, that what you think of that trope, or are there things where you see that people talk about Native people and get it wrong in the paranormal that we should check ourselves on? Anything like that. And we should also say that, Kimberly, she's a lot like us, and she just happens to be Native. Not all Native people are going to be into the paranormal, just like not all non-Native people are into the paranormal. But, there's a significant amount of people in all communities who are interested in the paranormal. And I think we got to see their faces and hear their voices a lot more.
Absolutely. And before you do that, if you could just tell a little bit of background of your culture and, where you come from as well, that would be very interesting.
Sure. Yeah. I'll start with that. So I'm Kim Lonetree. I'm from the Ho-Chunk Nation in Wisconsin. I grew up near the Wisconsin Dells area, and that is actually where my family is mainly from. My Chokakate, my great-grandpa, he was a pretty prominent NAC, Native American church leader. So he's very well known and very well respected, as well as my great grandmother, Anne Lonetree as well. So Sam and Anne Lonetree. I have many great aunts and uncles and many relatives, which we, in, all these different ways, we consider brother, sister, uncle, aunt, depending on how you're related to that person. So I'm a pretty proud Ho-Chunk Nation tribal member. I carry that pride with me everywhere that I go. And the stories that we have from the area, as far as like the paranormal goes, I mean, they span from like Devil's Lake to Wazee, to thunderbirds to Sasquatch, right? So everything. And there's, all these different stories that I've asked people throughout the years to share with me, or they've just come to me and shared them because they know of my interest, and my own stories. And gosh, I would have to say like the first story that I want to share with you guys, and I'll wait a second to share it with you, but is a Bigfoot story that actually my Hichushke, my nephew, well, actually not my nephew, my grandson, he Ho-Chunk Way grandson, he shared this story with me the other day, and it was pretty interesting. But I wanted to go back to what Allison was saying. She said, are there things that are, I guess kind of irritating, or maybe like misconceptions about, places that are haunted. And the first thing that does always kind of bother me is like, I feel like not just paranormal investigators, but just people who don't really understand maybe what's going on, or maybe they have very limited knowledge on what's happening in that area. They'll kind of just immediately go to, oh, it's an Indian burial ground, or, oh, this is, it has to do with Native Americans. And I'm just kind of like, well, it might not, and I mean, a lot of America, right? Like you're on Native American territory here. Like this is our land, right? So, I mean, that would mean that every inch of this land should be haunted, right? Because this was our land. But I really don't think that it kind of presents itself that way. I do think that there's areas where those, Native American spirits, they come up. We talk about it on our lands too. Some of us have seen them. They show up, the old Ho-Chunks. And I think that's really interesting because that shows that they're so tied to our ancestral lands that they're still coming around. They're still showing themselves, right? They're there for a purpose. But I do think that that's something that maybe needs a little bit more research on anybody's part, whoever is kind of like interested in what's happening to them supernaturally, is to just kind of like look into it a little bit more. Maybe it is, maybe you're on a burial ground or near burial grounds, and maybe what's happening can be linked to something that tribe knows about. So just do your research, but otherwise I'm not like too offended about it personally. I just think, yeah, like do a little bit more research if you can. I do the same thing where I'm just kind of like, okay, if something's happening to me, what's the history in this place? What happened? How old is this building? How old is this land? Who's been here before? And I've lived in several haunted places where I really just, I've dug in, I've found as much information as I can, but sometimes you can't really pinpoint what it is. You can only kind of go by gut feeling, right? If that makes any sense. But there's a story that I wanted to share with you, right? I said the Bigfoot story. I think that this one's really a really good one for Barnaby. Awesome. But so my Hichushke was telling me, he says that when they do their ceremonies, sometimes the Bigfoot will come around. Okay. And they join in the ceremonies because this is kind of like, you know, through time, they would join them sometimes kind of on the outskirts. And what's interesting is that we were, from what I was told, not on good terms with the Bigfoot. And we were at war, they were eating our people, and we were trying to get them to stop doing that. And so eventually we ended up entering a treaty with them. And this was, you don't come after our people, we don't come after yours. We leave you alone, you leave us alone. And so they kind of stayed where, you know, they are, we stay where we are. But the interesting thing, like I said, is that they know our ceremonies, from what I've been told. So when we have those ceremonies, it seems to be, and I may be corrected if I'm wrong, but it seems to me to be kind of a neutral ground when the ceremonies are happening. So his story was, he was with his family and they were having a ceremony at night, and they're sitting around a fire and they hear somebody out in the woods. They know that nobody else is out there. It's pitch black out, and somebody's out there walking around. So one of the guys, they kind of look out there and they can kind of see this really big figure out there, right? And they freeze and they're kind of scared. Well, the other guys that are sitting around the fire, they say, don't look at it. Don't look at it. Just leave it alone. We know what it is, and just let it be. And I can't recall if he said that more of them came around or not, but they joined, right? And they listened to the songs and just stood out there. And when they were done, then they took their leave. And so I thought, that's so interesting that we still have such a relationship with them. And when people don't believe in Bigfoot, I understand why they don't, because they haven't seen it. They don't know much about it. It sounds like, you know, a bunch of crock. But to Indigenous peoples, these are real beings. We have our stories. We pass these down to, you know, the next generation so that they understand who they are and how to respect them. And so I really think that, like, if we can, this is a personal thing of mine. If we can kind of gather more stories about Indigenous peoples with Bigfoot, and have a better understanding of what those relationships are, I think that we can make some serious headway in Bigfoot research to maybe like make a bigger step forward into actually like face-to-face communicating one day. I don't know. And it really, yeah, go on. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to add really quickly, and then I'm going to turn my camera off for a second, because although I started at 100% power and now I'm down to 10 for some reason, I got to plug this in quickly. But I just wanted, I know, right? I just wanted to let, you know, follow on with what you were saying, Kim, because I had heard from Ojibwe people from up near Bayfield, which is the top of Wisconsin, near the Apostle Islands. We have two Ojibwe bands out there. And I had heard similar things from them about Bigfoot coming around ceremonies. So I think that's really interesting. And I also think when I worked at the school, I used to bug, you know, some of my native language teachers there about different things about these creatures. And my Ojibwe teacher told me that there actually were like two words for Bigfoot. And I'm like, okay, are these modern day constructions? And he said, no, these are ancient words for Bigfoot. So to me, that was like, wow, these are ancient words for Bigfoot. That means they've been around a long time, and that the native peoples of this area, at least, had a lot more experience than the non-native people. And maybe, as you were saying, tapping into that knowledge by really talking to native people would help us gain more understanding. So I'll let you talk amongst yourselves for a minute.
Yeah,
we're going to take a really quick break for station identification, and it's like 30 seconds. So that'll give Allison a little bit of break here too.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah, we are talking with Allison Jornlin, who is a researcher and author, and Kimberly Lonetree, who is a native Ho-Chunk member. And we are going to be right back after this really quick message about the Untold Radio Network. If you have any questions about any of that stuff, get them in the comments, put them in all caps, or become a Super Chat member.
Show your support for the Untold Radio Network family of shows and join in on the conversation by using super stickers and super chats on YouTube. Got a question you want answered? Ask it live via a super chat and get real-time responses from our show's knowledgeable hosts and guests. Help keep the Untold Radio Network shows running strong. We need your support. Send your super chats and stickers now.
All right, we are back. Allison is off screen. We're gonna bring her back up when she gets here. But I got to tell you, I think I've met you twice now. I met you up at MI Paracon, right? And forgive me if I'm wrong on this, but it was your dad that was with you?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I would like to pass on this, that he is an amazing man. And I have all the people that I've met at conferences, I got to say that out of all the stories and stuff that I have heard and tales, his was one that stuck out the most with me. And I cannot, thank you very much. Tell him thank you. And it was such a pleasure meeting him and talking to him at MI Paracon. And then, so pass that along for me, because he has a lot of Bigfoot knowledge and just an amazing.
Yes. Thank you so much, pardon me. My dad's going to be so excited to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what I wanted to say was just before I kind of let you go on is just, a lot of this knowledge too, I'm learning as well. My dad is like, he's super knowledgeable, but I personally am kind of gathering bits and pieces here and learning from him and learning from others in the community. And, some of this stuff too, a lot of the Ho-Chunks, I'm sure with other tribes as well, people don't talk about. Mm-hmm. And it's out of respect for our ancestors, it's out of respect for other Ho-Chunks, it's out of, fear for certain parts of the paranormal, don't speak about it, because if you speak about it, it's going to come around type thing. Mm-hmm. But I just wanted to say that as a little disclaimer too,
that's why, like I said, it's so important that when you have the Indigenous people that are willing to talk about these stories, that everyone listens, because I say this 100 times for things like Mokelia Membe, the African Congo dinosaur, and the lowland gorillas and all these things that have been found around the world, or the stories that we hear. You have the Indigenous people that have been here on this land way before we were, whose ultimate survival depended on knowing where the food was, how to travel, how to stay safe, and what animals were in the area. That if you're gonna believe somebody's story about a Bigfoot, I mean, these people that were, the stories and legends that you have, why would they lie? Why would they have anything to do about that? That is just blows your mind. I mean, these people had to exist, and what they saw is what they saw. Allison's back with us, so welcome back, Allison.
Yeah, lots of technical issues today. Sorry about that.
You're running back
be good
across the camera.
I know. I was like, oh wow, and then I'm like 92%. I should be fine. Nope.
I know we're talking about Bigfoot, And I'm totally fine discussing that. I do want to ask you one question because we were talking about the burial mounds and stuff like that. And one of the tropes that always comes up for me is the dog man and these burial sites. And I wonder if Kim, have you heard any stories about that?
I personally haven't, but now I'm going to ask. I'm
Okay,
going to
yeah.
definitely ask around about it. I've heard of the dogman before, but not really in relation to my tribe. So that would be very interesting to kind of dig deeper and get a little bit more information and bring that back to you both.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anytime you want to come on, I'd love to have you again as a guest.
Yeah.
As well. So, yeah. So carry on with Bigfoot. Like I said, it is so important to hear like the native stories and that of the area. So what else have you heard from right here in Wisconsin or anywhere that that you've had experience with? Have you seen one personally or anything like that?
Great question. I was thinking earlier this morning about an experience that I had, and then an experience that my aunt had. You've already heard my dad's story, which is a very creepy story about Bigfoot in Texas. But my story, I don't know if it was a Bigfoot or something else, but I was investigating the lad school area when I lived in Rhode Island. So I was just with my husband at the time and a friend of ours. We were just walking along the pathways around lad school. And there's like a bunch of woods to the right of us on the pathway we're on. Thick, and it's dark out, so I couldn't see anything past maybe like a foot into the forest. And I hear something as we're walking and talking, walking with us through the forest, and listened to it for a little bit. Was kind of like, what, is there a person in the woods? Can they see us, and are they walking with us? So I'm listening, and then I stop until, the two others I'm with stop. Let me listen. And then I hear it take like a couple more steps and it stops. So it's like, okay, I'm getting really creeped out. We keep walking, and then I hear it start again, and it's following us. It's walking in pace with us. So I stop again, and I'm like, shh, be quiet. Everybody stops, and it stops in the woods. So finally, because one of our friends had heard it, he actually stops his foot really hard. And whatever it was in the forest stopped following us. It was kind of like his little warning sign to it, like, hey, we can hear you. We know you're following us. Stop. So that was the experience that I thought of that could be possibly a Bigfoot encounter. And so I did a little bit of research, and I was like, Bigfoot sightings in Rhode Island. Rhode Island's such a small state. You don't really hear about that. But sure enough, there are Bigfoot researchers out in Rhode Island that have claims of Bigfoot or have seen them themselves. And so to me, that's really interesting because I'm like, even in such a small state as that, you could have Bigfoot sightings. And then it brings me to the idea of, I've heard this before, and I don't know what you think about this, Barnaby, but, or Allison, is them being kind of interdimensional creatures, right? So they don't just exist here. They come through perhaps portals or whatnot to get to where we are and leave as they please. So that's an idea that I've been kind of monkeying around with, and the possibility of that being much more advanced creatures. They are, I mean, from the stories that I know from other Indigenous peoples, they're pretty advanced. They know how to understand our languages. They know our ceremonies. They know how to join those ceremonies and sing with us. So to me, they're very advanced. And then the story that my Chewy, my aunt, she actually shared with me. She said that she was out fishing one day at one of the parks in Wisconsin with her husband, and it started getting dark out, so they were packing up their stuff and they needed to walk along a trail to get back to the truck or car. And they hear something in the woods. So it was a very similar experience to what I had in Rhode Island, where they heard something really walking in there, but it was like heavy footing and sounded very big, a lot of branches, breaking, whatnot. And, they kind of stopped and listened, and it was walking with them, they realized. So when they would stop, it would stop. So they kept walking, and finally, her husband, who is part Menominee, he actually made some noise. I think he stomped his feet, and it stopped following them as well. But she said the smell was what got her. For me, I didn't have the smell factor in my experience. So that's why I'm like, I don't know if it's a Bigfoot encounter or something else. But with her, she said that the smell was there, and the smell was just awful.
How did she describe it?
Every time that I've heard it described, it's been like garbage, like something, I guess, like rotting, and something like garbage smell, like just really, really pungent and very, very nasty. And that the closer they get, the stronger it is, obviously. But that it's a smell that you can't get out of your memory, right? Once you have it. So she described it just as that, which was it was like a dirty garbage kind of smell. So, or they call them skunk apes too, because you get that kind of skunky smell too, right? So,
right.
Yeah, but that's how it's been described to me by the people that I know. They always describe it as it's kind of like a very, very pungent, difficult to forget smell.
Right. I mean, and that is so powerful. If you have a sensory experience like that, they can never forget, and it's not like anything else. So yes, very very advanced in terms of interdimensionality, but maybe not in the deodorant department. But I had heard.
Well, how many Bigfoot have you seen in Walmart shopping for deodorant?
Never. Well, maybe that one time. But yeah, I had heard about portals before. When I was in an undergrad at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, I had a great professor who taught a lot of Native American courses. He's passed on now, but his name was John Boatman. And I think that's the first time I heard. I mean, I can't recall him ever talking about Bigfoot, but he did say that there are some lands with portals to other dimensions. And I was like, wow, I gotta take every class this guy is teaching. This is my jam right here.
Allison, you had mentioned earlier the Mitsupichu and the Piasaw bird and thunderbirds in general. And I'm wondering if you guys can both kind of talk a little bit about some of the legend and lore behind the thunderbirds as well in Wisconsin and beyond, and especially any of if you have any stories, Kim, about from your experiences and stuff.
Well, I'm just going to briefly say that in my experience working at Indian Community School, every spring we would renew our spirit pole, which is a cedar pole, and it does have some adornments on it that have different meanings. But that's where you would meet the spirits out on the land. So the kid was having.
Allison has muted herself. Allison has muted herself. Kimberly, what do you got?
And
now she's frozen. Oh, no, she's not. She's just in disbelief. What have you heard, Kim?
So my stories are very few and far between as far as like thunderbirds. I've actually heard a story from a Navajo friend of mine back in college. I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston, and there was this brilliant Navajo composer. And he would just kind of tell these stories about thunderbirds. Either like he would make them up sometimes, like they were just beautiful little stories that he would make up, or stuff that he had heard, I believe, from his mother. He was adopted, so his adopted mother was actually in Los Angeles and non-native. So he was raised that way, but he kept in touch with his Navajo mother. So I can't recall those stories very well, but I just remember them being really, really beautiful. And they're, they're a very strong creature. Like when they're seen, like my understanding is that there's something very important happening, a big event. So I'm trying to think of like some other stories while we wait for Allison. Allison, we can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Allison and I are talking in the private chat in here, and she says, I just can't catch a break today. And I said, I see that. And she says that her headphones were fully charged and they just died.
Oh,
so,
goodness.
Allison, I think you need to sage your house.
Oh, goodness.
Yep, there you go. You better
She's
get on that
prepared.
because your
She's
technology
prepared.
is just not working this afternoon.
Oh, goodness.
Do you, Allison, do you think you can get back up on there or no? Yeah, I can't read lips, so.
Oh no. Oh, okay, am I back?
Yay!
Right.
Okay. I just had to change my settings, and then I saw, I have an unmute button, and now I'm muted. I have to unmute. So I'm back. I just want to quickly say that I have heard similar things about the Thunderbird being a protector to at least the people of Wisconsin. And when I worked at Indian Community School, every spring we would rededicate our spirit pole. And that was a place where we could reconnect with the spirits if kids were having a hard time, or if they had, they've had a tragedy in their lives. That was a place where we could commune with the spirits. And, but when we rededicated it, we would call to the Thunderbird during the springtime to protect us from the inclement weather, the thunderstorms that might come. And so it's not thought of as this thing hunting you from the skies, at least here, where the nations that I'm familiar with in Wisconsin, even the Menominee has the Thunderbird right on their seal. So to me, it's a protective spirit. And I think in Illinois, it was seen in that way too. And for it to be pictured like the Piasa bird and it comes and it eats native people, I think there are other tribes, maybe out west that have that belief, but not so much in the Midwest. But the idea that this water creature, Mississippi, would come and, pull you into the water and drown you, and you had to be protected by the Thunderbird. I've read a lot about that, and that seems to be what was going on in Illinois. And that petroglyph of, or pictograph, not sure the difference, but this picture of traditionally of this creature was a warning to canoers that was the area of the rapids and that they should watch out for Mississippi, which makes a lot of sense because it was prominent there on the bluff above the river where canoers would pass. So, you know, the idea that it's some warning about a bird that comes from the sky, I don't think has validity. And anthropologists of this area don't think so either. They think it's a water creature.
And I don't think you brought that up, but the actual image that you see on the cliffside is a reenactment or a recreation of an
Right.
original drawing. It's not the original drawing that was there that actually got destroyed. So that's more just terrible stuff that we've done, you know, with just disregard for the history that has come before us in just our conquest across the United States and
Well,
everywhere for that matter.
yeah, I just think, you know, a lot of times what you hear as authentic Indian legends are some non-native rewrites. And a lot of times, you know, they're not accurate. So we got to be very careful of that.
Absolutely. It's so hard when you deal with history because you don't have a lot of times the people or the you know the story there. You can't get it. You have to piece all this together, and you know history is written by the people that wrote it, not by the people that lived it. So absolutely. I want to talk a little bit real quick here about lake monsters. You know, we always talk about Bigfoot in, you know, the native culture and stuff. And what about lake monsters? I mean, like there's what does Chad say? There's over 60 different, Chad Lewis says there's like 60 different lake monsters just right in Wisconsin alone. And like I said, we're going to be talking all about lake monsters this Saturday at the Milwaukee Paracon in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Anyway, and so what have we got for native stories and legends about that?
Well, I'm just going to say Miss Piju was alternatively called the water panther.
Mhm.
And at first I was like, water panther? I mean, I don't even understand that. But then I was like, oh, you know, jaguars will jump into water and hunt. They're unlike other cats in that way. And although the limits of the jaguar range today, you know, cuts off at like Arizona, it's possible that back in the day when these stories were being told, you know, in the 1700s, 1800s, maybe even further back, that jaguar were roaming more widely. And what's interesting is when you see depictions of Miss Piju, you will sometimes see that it's spotted like a jaguar.
Mm-hmm.
It's really kind of cool to think that, you know, that these stories might have come from that range being a lot bigger than it is today. So I don't know, Kim, you know, about you know, what you've heard regarding water monsters in Wisconsin, if anything.
When I think about water monsters, I actually more so think about water spirits, or those kind of stories where, like Devil's Lake, for example. The story that I had heard was it was two devils fighting above that land, right? And they hit the ground really hard and created that lake, and that they're at the bottom of that lake, right? So that's what I had heard. I've kind of heard different variations of that story as well. So I think if nobody knows about Devil's Lake in Wisconsin, definitely check it out. Check out the legend. But Wazee as well, like I didn't know about this until probably 2 or 3 years ago. That's up in Black River Falls. But that, from what I recall, it's man-made. It was dug out and filled with water, but it's one of the deepest lakes that we have. And it's very cold. So like people will go scuba diving in there, and sometimes they'll just kind of like get lost to the lake because of like the coldness and the depths of it. So there's kind of a legend too that, you know, some of the Ho-Chunks, they don't like to go visit that lake because of a fear of, from what I've heard, being pulled into the lake and drowned, right? Or if you go swimming around it, or, you know, you're going to get pulled down and it's going to take you. So there's some people that they won't go to that area. They won't even entertain the idea of it. Whereas some others feel very comfortable with visiting. I'm one of those that I feel comfortable visiting. I don't feel very comfortable swimming around in it. But that's also because I just have a fear of like deep water. So for me to like be in something like that, I'm like, it's a little too scary. But those are things that come to mind immediately for me. Is I hear a lot of stories from natives about spirits in lakes, or by rivers, you know. And then when I think about my childhood, when I think about lake monsters, Loch Ness, right? So that's the one that I was obsessed with as a kid. Probably one of the first cryptids that I was like, this, I need to know as much about it as I can. And so I started like, you know, looking up dinosaurs and making connections that way and thinking, well, what if this theory about, you know, Loch Ness being this specific dinosaur that's still in existence, like it didn't die off. It's just there. It just lives in the depths. And maybe once in a while you see it kind of, you know, come up to these different areas, or, you know, all these different theories. And that's the one that really stuck with me all through the years, because I certainly believe that there are lake monsters. We can't possibly know everything that's when, you know, in these big lakes or in the oceans. So I need to learn more about it personally. I definitely need to do more research about it. But yeah, that's kind of what I have to say about lake monsters and spirits.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. Well, I look forward to hearing more about all your research and everything that you got going on and coming up. And, you know, like I said, if you ever want to come back on the show and share some more stories and stuff, by all means, I'd love to have you back.
Yes, that would be awesome.
And Allison, you know, you're always welcome back. I'll probably talk to you next year, same time, same place. So,
well, that would be great. Yes, we should both come back next year, and I'll make sure I have more backups or something. I don't know, or I smudge.
Plug your computer in. Plug the speakers in.
It's been a day as far as the technical difficulties.
Very good. Very good. Allison, I will see you this weekend at the Milwaukee Paranormal Conference. It's going to be a great time. Admission is free. You just got to go to MilwaukeeParacon.com to register. And that is all thanks to American Ghost Walks, who sponsored this event, AmericanGhostWalks.com. And free event, go out and register. And if you're interested in going Bigfooting with myself, you can get tickets for that on that Sunday, the 15th. It will be, I think it starts at 4 to 7, and the location is within a half hour of Milwaukee itself. So we won't tell you where that is, but you'll find out then. So again, Kimberly, thank you so much for being a guest, and I look forward to hearing more about your research and everything and having you back on.
Thanks, Barnaby. I loved being here. And Allison, thank you for inviting me. I am so glad to be doing this with you both. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Allison, what else you got coming up? Anything else? You know, we talked about American Ghost Walk tours coming up, and do you have any other conferences or stuff that you're speaking at?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure I have something. I have a lot of podcasts coming up. I'm just trying not to think too much about this month, so that I don't get overwhelmed, because it's coming fast and furious. But yeah, I'm just focusing on Milwaukee Paracon this weekend, and getting some details ready for all you guys about these incredible stories that happen right here in Milwaukee.
Absolutely. And we didn't touch on the fact Milwaukee Paracon is all about Wisconsin paranormal cryptids and creatures. So it's all centralized right here in Wisconsin, if anybody's interested in that. So it's a really cool event. Awesome. Allison, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the show today. All right.
Thank you, Barnaby. Thank you, Kim.
All right, guys, that is our show for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. I gotta tell you, I had a guest lined up for next week, and it was going to be great. And due to some amazing news from them, they're not able to make it next week. So I don't know who we're gonna have on the show next week. It is super cool. They will reschedule, but because of certain things that are going on, can't tell you. They can't make it. So we will have them on again later on. So I don't know who's going to be on the show next week. I got to figure that out after I end the show today. So it's going to be a surprise for all of you, and it's sure going to be a surprise for me. So guys, until next week, come out and see us in Milwaukee, and I'll see you on the edge.